What's up, y'all, and welcome to another episode of Worldly Church Girl. It's your girl, your host, Lillian Harshaw. On today's show, I have a young man who's achieved so much already in his life. He's an activist. He's won multiple awards for his book, and he's actually started a series that is helping Black men with self-esteem issues. It gives me great honor to introduce to you Nelson E. Brown. At such a young age, you have accomplished so much. You self-published 2 books. You've won multiple awards for them. You started your own clothing line, and now you're a part of the Stellar Award nominated winning Awesome God Radio family. But I want to start talking about your book series. Can you tell us about that?
Yes, I can definitely tell you about that. My book series and brand that I started back in 2018 when I was 19 years old. It's about it's all about uplifting young men and boys and creating healthy self-images for young men and boys. And it's about it was inspired by my own struggles with my self-image growing up. So I decided to start a book series and a brand because I noticed that throughout the media, there weren't a lot of men and boys, young men and boys that were, really open about their struggles with their self-esteem issues and with their self-image in the same way that females were. So I decided to take it upon myself to, write about it. And that's how the book series came about. I wanted to give young men and boys a platform to discuss their true feelings and lay their hearts out on the table. And that's why I started my radio show with Awesome God Radio. It's based upon my book series, but it's my overall mission and I would say my journey, and is to help young men and boys feel more comfortable about who they are, because it's something that I struggled with growing up, with body image issues and self-esteem issues and just not feeling adequate enough, good enough, on not just a physical level, but an intellectual level and even an emotional level, and trying to find a healthy space for myself in order to express how I feel and in order to handle circumstances that come my way, throughout life. So that's why I decided to start the book series and brand, because I wanted to give young men and boys, especially young men and boys that look like me, a platform to express themselves in a healthy manner. And that's why I created my radio show with Awesome God Radio, the Beauty in Us Radio. It's because I wanted to give young men and boys that platform, since I noticed that there were not really any young men in my age group or in my peer group or any young men that looked like me that were in the process of, just trying to make young men and boys feel more comfortable about who they are and breaking through that stigma of, toxic masculinity and all of the negative qualities behind it. And instead, I'm pulling together the strengths and weaknesses and seeing the beauty of it.
The title of your show is called The Beauty in Us. Now, for the most part, when you think of beauty, it always goes with women, the industry as far as women. So what made you choose that for talking about men?
Well, I came up with the title because I wanted to think of a way where I can recognize the true meaning of what it means to, be a man in today's world. And I wanted to give young men and boys an opportunity to express themselves in a healthy manner and to recognize their strengths, on the inside and not just the outside. I wanted to figure out a way to um, give young men and boys a platform where they can recognize their unlimited potential, and they can see how creative they are, how talented they are, how gifted they are from the inside. Oftentimes, we tend to dwell on our external factors, and we don't really recognize how strong we are and how beautiful we are in the inside, because we often dwell on things like looks and what we think is the world's view of how we should be instead of being true to ourselves. So that's why I decided to create the radio show, the Beauty in Us Radio with Awesome God Radio. I wanted to just I wanted to help young men and boys recognize how great they were on the inside, their internal factors, instead of dwelling on their weaknesses or the external factors or how they look on the outside, or um, just thinking about and not just discouraging them in terms of just wanting them to see how much how great they are and how much unlimited potential that they have. And so that's why I wanted to create that platform and that space, because it's not always about looks. And when we think about self-esteem, it's not always about looks. It's about our strengths and weaknesses, how people treat us, the flaws that we sometimes make up or people point out to us. So that's why I just wanted to give men and boys that opportunity to express themselves, because it's such a taboo subject. Talking about men and boys and feelings, that's such a taboo subject because we've been conditioned to believe that, it's not good to show any type of emotion, or um, it's not okay to cry. We've been conditioned to believe that that's the way we're supposed to carry ourselves in the world, and it's very, very difficult for men and boys to be vulnerable. And that's what my book series is all about. Just having a healthy sense of what it means to be masculine, or even what it means to be a man, or what it means to grow up into a mature man with a foundation and with a spiritual stance to, I guess, lean on. So that's why I decided to just make this my journey and my calling in a way.
What would you say is the definition of a man that's secure in himself?
I definitely believe that a part of being a man is having a foundation to stand on, and that foundation could include, the strengths as well as the weaknesses that he may have. I think that the confidence in all of that is embracing your strengths and your weaknesses as a man and creating that, molding that into your foundation, and just being comfortable with that and having confidence in that, because it carries it carries, and it's with you no matter what. How you grow up and how you carry yourself and how you show up in the world. It's about what you stand with, and it's about what you stand on. So I think that having a secure foundation with your strengths and your weaknesses, and seeing the beauty in all of it, and being confident and believing in yourself, I think is what it means to be a man in short terms.
When you won your award for your book, your first one, do you remember where you were, what you were doing?
Yes, I received the 2019 Newsome Award, the Newsome Gospel Music Award, back in August of last year, so in 2019. So I received my first award for my first book. I actually released my first book in August of 2018, and I won my first award the following year in the same month, so in August of 2019. So I think that, I was actually I was at the Randallstown Community Center, and in the news I was at the Newsome Gospel Music Awards. It was my first award show for my book. I was invited. My mom and I sat there, and we went through all of the performances. We really enjoyed the show. I was interviewed by the Lakeisha Mosley Show, with Jerry Royce Live's Positive Power Christian Media. So I guess that just I think it felt good to be recognized for something positive. I felt like I've often been overlooked growing up, because I was more reserved and more of the quiet type growing up. So I think that I was often overlooked and undermined in in a lot of ways, because I was a good student, a hardworking student, but I feel as though because of how quiet I was and because of how reserved I was, a lot of people didn't really get to see the true, Nelson. A lot of people didn't really give me a chance to show them how creative I was and how talented I was and how inspirational I was and how inspirational I could be at the time. But now I have the opportunity to do that. And now I have the opportunity to lay my heart out on the table and to just give myself permission to be vulnerable and to be honest, so that everybody else can relate to, authenticity and transparency. in all its forms.
Now, those people that you grew up with, have they reached out to you? Like, whoa, man, look where you came from. Have they reached out to you at all?
I have a lot of my former classmates that have reached out to me. I've been in touch with childhood friends. I've had the opportunity to stay in touch with a lot of people growing up and throughout different phases of my life. So I have had a lot of classmates, reach out to me.
So, I mean, but what has been like the interaction from the Nelson that they thought they knew to the Nelson that they know now?
Well, I think a lot of people have responded, and a lot of people have praised me, but I think a lot of people are really surprised. Outside of my small circle of friends that I had, throughout school, throughout elementary, middle, and high school, I think that a lot of people are surprised because, again, I was more of the quiet type, the more shy type, and I think that I was often overlooked and I didn't really think that people really recognized my voice. People didn't really acknowledge my voice. So I think that by me being an author and now me being a radio host, and now people know who I am every time they watch one of my shows on Tuesday evenings from 6 to 7 p.m. I think that um, it gives them an opportunity to just sit back and listen because a lot of people didn't really know they didn't really recognize my creativity and my talent and how inspirational I was until I wrote a book and until I was able to start this brand and start this business in a way. So I a lot and some people I had my cousin the other day. He's younger than I am. He talked about how much I inspire him to do more and to be more. And I've had people that reach out to me and they say that I love your work. You do such fantastic work, and even though I'm not into religion or I'm not a religious person, you still inspire me to do more. You inspire me to be a better person, and it's not just about the church community or the faith-based community. You do work that's universal, and it really really makes me feel great knowing that people are actually paying attention because for a while I felt like nobody really nobody was really paying any attention. So I definitely feel good about myself, and I'm keeping my humility, and I'm just moving forward, and I'm just figuring out, how I can send that positive message in the most authentic way I can.
Now, was it hard for you to share your story?
Well, for my first book, it was difficult for me to put those pieces together because I started the book a month or two after I graduated from high school. So between June and July of 2017, that's when I started my first book, and that's when the idea of starting a book series came about. And it was because I was thinking about my journey, throughout high school, and not just throughout high school, but growing up. And I started writing down all of what I had gone through and the different phases of my life and all of what I had experienced. So when I started writing everything down, I started outlining my notes. I went to my mom and I was asking her, I think I should write a book. I think I should be able to, tell my story. I've been hiding so long. I think it's time to, send this to the world. And she was really supportive of it, and she's still really supportive of it. So, um, so I I contacted the Maryland Writers Association, and I was able to network with a lot of people in the publishing industry. And after that, I was able to speak with an editor and an illustrator and some of the other entrepreneurs there that owned small book publishing businesses and companies. And I was able to make a lot of connections, and that's how the first book came about. I was able to um, use my resources and my contacts to my advantage. And um, I think that by me being marketable, I think that that was definitely what put the nail in the coffin in terms of people vouching for me and making sure that I wasn't missing opportunities that in the past I think I could have missed because I doubted myself and my abilities.
Now, could you share a tidbit of a story from your book? That
Yes, yes. So from the first book, well, I don't have it with me right now, so I'm not going to read it verbatim, but
Mm-hmm.
I can like summarize a little bit of it of the first book and a little bit of the second book. So the
Okay.
first book, there is one of the most profound, um, one of the most profound scenes, or I wouldn't call it scenes, or I should say. In the first book is when I speak about my elementary um, school math teacher and how I felt mistreated by him and how I felt as though he was the one that really didn't validate me in the way I felt like I needed to be validated because he patronized me on several occasions, and even in a parent teachers conference, he destroyed my self esteem when he called me stupid in front of my mother because I wasn't because I went to him for coach class and I just had a very difficult time retaining a lot of the content that was being presented and that was supposed to be taught in his course, and I had him for one grade and then the next grade, and then afterwards he kind of disappeared. But and then even after that, having educators and some people who were supposed to be role models or mentors, a lot of them didn't really support me the way I felt like I needed to be supported. I did have that a handful that were, but I think that by being a kid growing up, I felt a little bit helpless because I was in the position where I felt like I was in the position where I couldn't do much, and I felt like um, I just felt like nobody was going to be in the position to want to listen to me or to want to hear my story, and that's what caused me to believe that my voice did not matter, and that my story did not matter, and that my testimony did not matter. But when I got older, throughout different portions of the book, you can see my growth. I start from the age of 5 in kindergarten, in that different world, in that small world, and then I end the first book at my graduation from high school. And in the second book, it's a book of poetry, and it's about just coming into the world as a young adult, and then more specifically as a young African American male, trying to navigate, through the world and um, trying to find my place into the world and trying to discover, who I am, and what I want for myself in the future. Because I feel like a lot of young people in my age bracket we're pulled in so many different directions. We want so many things, and we yearn for so many things, but we don't know how to go about doing that because we know what we want, but it's in terms of just getting there that we sometimes get impatient with, and sometimes we only see where we are now, and we downplay our we don't really acknowledge the small blessings or the small accomplishments. But I think that we just have to be more thankful and more appreciative of where we are and where we're trying to go, and leaning on our faith in the process. And we're really really hard on ourselves. I mean, we we expect so much. We have such high standards for um, you know when we're not in the position to when we're in the position to do all of what we can do, we set such high standards for ourselves, and that's when we kind of become perfectionists. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
guilty of that all the time. So I'm thankful for the opportunity that I get to be flawed and appreciated, because more people can relate to you being flawed and not you being perfect.
Right. Right. Exactly. I've also read that you are a facilitator for a married couple and singles group for your church, which probably has slowed down right now during the COVID thing right now, I'm sure. But that was one of your charters in your church. Now, being such a young man, how did that come about?
Well, I think that when I spoke with one of my mentors at church, and he told me about small groups at the Messiah Community Church right here in Maryland. At the Messiah, we have small groups where we get to connect with other members, of our church. They have married couples, singles, young adults, and they have different groups. And I went to him and I was asking him that, I think I want to be more involved in the ministry. And I asked him how I could be more involved in the ministry in some form or another, because personally, I don't think that, I don't think that, I told him I don't think I have what it takes to be a pastor or a minister, but I still want to be involved in some way, shape, or form in the ministry. I want to use my testimony to bless someone else. So how can I go about doing that? And he told me about, he told me that they were doing training for, small groups so that I could become a facilitator. So he said that they're training, minister. He told me about the minister that was, facilitating that, and the training that I had to go through for the entire season in order to become a small groups facilitator. And I absolutely loved it. Prior to this pandemic, I was able to, meet with, because I had married couples in my group, and I was able to learn so much, because at first I didn't feel as though I had the tools that I needed to facilitate a group with married couples, because I'm not married. So I didn't really know what to expect, but I did have a co-facilitator who kind of guided me along the way, and kind of assisted me in a lot of ways. Um, and it opened my eyes to different perspectives on life and the journey with, the Christian faith. Um, it, it definitely, it made me see things from another point of view. And for a while now, because I suffered from such the poor self-esteem, and my self-image was so distorted that, I think that, um, and to be honest, because of how I grew up, with a single mom and, being fatherless, I felt for a long time that, I didn't deserve to have a family of my own, because I didn't know what that looked like. I was just so accustomed to just having one parent and to just having a single mom and everything else. But by facilitating these small groups and listening to other perspectives and just thinking about it from another lens, and just hearing about it from the married couples, about the journey of marriage and what it means to put covenant first, and what it means to stay faithful, and what it means to be on the same page. I think that it gives me more tools than I thought that I would ever get. So I think that, so I don't regret it at all, becoming a small groups facilitator for married couples. And even as a single person, it gives me more tools to use at my disposal, just when that time comes, and when I'm blessed with the opportunity to have my own family and to have children of my own.
We talked about this a little bit. Being a part of Awesome God Radio, what made you join the family?
Well, last year, in December of last year, I was interviewed. Well, I first met Awesome God Radio through Miss Whitney Hogan's. So she introduced me to Awesome God Radio, and she introduced me specifically to the Good Life Gospel Show. So I was first introduced to AGR through the Good Life Gospel Show in an interview, and then afterwards I appeared on her show, the She Heals Radio Show, and then she gave me the idea about starting my own show, and then then AJ gave me the idea of starting my own show too, because he said, I really like what you represent. I like what you do. You already went through the training. We already had a podcast training. We already went through the training. I think you're ready. I think you're ready
Now,
to be.
for those who don't know who AJ is, because they may not know, I mean, I know.
Yes.
And I've interviewed him on the show, but just in case the listeners new to the show, tell them who AJ is.
Yes, so he is the founder and the CEO of Awesome God Radio. So he is pretty much the head of the Awesome God Radio's whole mission, the whole operation, and everything else.
Yeah.
So he's the one that actually, nudged me to, start my own show, because he was saying, you've already been through the training. You listen, you're very insightful, you're very smart. You went through the training already. I think you're ready. I think you're ready to do that. And I know that you have a hard time, trusting people, and I know that you've been hurt in the past, and I'm really sensitive about that. But whenever you're ready, you can just give me a call. You have me, and you have everybody else here. We're all a family. So, he really kind of nudged me to, do that, because he was able to see the potential in me that I was not able to see. I mean, the old me would have never been able to just have my own radio show or have my own platform. And the old me would have never been in the position where I can just sit in front of someone and get interviewed and to interview others. Having the opportunity to interview other people is something that I never thought I would be doing at all. I mean, I was so shy and I had absolutely no confidence in who I was. There was a moment in time where, because I had such low self esteem, not just because of my physicality, but just because I was just doubting myself and my abilities so much that I just couldn't put myself in a position to do anything. There was a moment in time in high school where I was just so depressed and just so sad about just my way of being that I just didn't participate in anything. I went like a whole year and more just not being involved in any type of clubs or activities and just being really apprehensive about putting myself out there and trying new things and taking new risks, healthy risks. But now I have the opportunity to do that, and I'm not as reluctant to do that anymore when it's beneficial for me or when it's beneficial for someone else.
I'm really trying to wrap my head around the notion of when you keep saying how you look. Because I don't see anything wrong with how you look.
Well,
What are you talking about?
well, there was a moment in time where I suffered from childhood obesity.
Okay.
So I suffered from that for a while. Because I was heavier and because I was overweight and because I adapted to a healthier, not so healthy lifestyle for a while. I felt like I had a distorted self-image. I felt like I didn't really have a lot of self-esteem. I felt like looks were the most important thing growing up. I know people all the time, they say that, women are under scrutiny more than men are, but I feel as though men still are. I feel like there are standards, unreasonable and unattainable standards that men have to look a certain way and to present themselves a certain way. And that was something that I was insecure about, as a heavy person, as an obese and overweight child. But my weight and my body image and just having that distorted, thought in my mind, it didn't really bother me until I was about like 10 years old. And ever since then, and I've been able to lose weight and, you know, and adapt to a more healthier and happier lifestyle. But I think it's the whole point of just being comfortable in my own skin and not feeling so insecure. There was a point in time where um, I felt really insecure because I felt like I didn't really have looks to in middle school, for instance, to get the girl that I liked or that I had a crush on. I would always see other guys, or they would I just felt like because um I didn't really feel attractive enough, and I felt like the girls wouldn't like me because of that. So I would try to overcompensate in other areas like my academics or scholastically. I felt like I just had to prove myself and that I had to overcompensate and overindulge in something. And I felt the sense of loneliness. And I think it all stems back from me feeling fatherless and me feeling um, abandoned and having that bitterness and resentment and that anger towards, my father for not being present and for not being there for me and being inconsistent. So I think that I turned to food as a result of that because that at the time satisfied and filled that void of loneliness in a sense. I didn't feel lonely and I didn't feel rejected and I didn't feel like anybody was going to turn their back on me in the same way he did and some people, after that did. And because that contributed to the reason why I felt like I was so fearful of rejection. But last week, actually, I did a show on my show about the freedom of forgiveness, and I was able to break through a lot of chains and bondage as a result of that. And a lot of people really enjoyed that show. And even this evening, I'm going to have a discussion. It's an hour-long discussion It is called When I Was a Black Man. So that's going to be a really, really powerful show for this evening. It's from 6 to 7 p.m. So it's
Oh,
every
okay.
Tuesday.
All right. I'm looking forward to it. If you don't mind sharing, how much did you weigh at your largest?
My largest size, when I was about 14, it was when I was about 14 years old, when I first started high school as a freshman. I was around 236 pounds, and I was about 5'4" or 5'3", so around that height. I'm 5'8" now, but
Okay.
around that, I was around that height, and I was approximately that size. So and I was and like I said, the weight gain didn't really start happening. It was around 10. So between the age of like 10 and 14, that's when I really, struggled with that the most. But or when I was about 15 or 16, that's when I started, kicking into gear more healthier habits in a more healthier outlook on myself and
Hmm.
everything else.
So where are you now? I know you're 5'8", but with the weight, where are you now?
Um, I teeter between 170 and 185.
Okay. You look good. You look great. You said people can catch your show every Tuesday from 6 to 7.
Yes, every Tuesday evening from 6 to 7 p.m., The Beauty in Us is going to air. I'm the host of The Beauty in Us Radio on Awesome God Radio, tonight specifically, and I'm still planning shows for December. I have to check my schedule again, but like I said, tonight I'm going to do a segment on it's called When I Was a Black Man. So I have guests for the remainder of the year. So for the rest of December, I'm not going to have a show next week, but for the rest of December, I'm going to have guests, and I'm going to have one more discussion. So I'm going to keep all of my listeners and my audience up to date about that. So I've already interviewed several people on my show already. So I'm really, really blessed and thankful for the opportunity to network with such fantastic people. And it's a platform where I talk about subjects that matter from a young black male's perspective. So a young black man's perspective is something that's highlighted on my show because it's something that a lot of media outlets don't really recognize and are apprehensive about recognizing. So the perspectives of a young black male, today is something that I feel as though the world needs to hear and the world needs to highlight, most importantly, in the midst of everything that's going on. So I'm really thankful and blessed for AGR embracing my story and for welcoming open arms.
Yes. Yeah, I advise everybody to catch a show. I watch it. I've seen it on Facebook and on Instagram. So is there any other platforms you're on, or is it just those two?
Well, I also do Periscope and YouTube, so they can also
Okay.
catch it on YouTube. So they can either type in, my name, Nelson Brown. My author name is Nelson E. Brown, but they can either type in Nelson Brown or the title of the show, which is The Beauty in Us Radio. So they can, if they put both of those names in the search engine, all of my episodes will show up. All of the segments of my show will show up on YouTube, and like I said, we do it live through Periscope in addition to Facebook and Instagram. But I usually do the first half of the show on Instagram, and I usually continue with the other platforms later on because Instagram, after a while, it'll cut you out. Um,
Just petty.
um, yeah, yeah, it'll like after about 45 minutes, it'll kind of cut you off when you're doing your
Hmm.
live. But I usually continue on with the other platforms for the remainder of the show. It's a long show, and
Okay.
I try to switch it up. So I may have a guest for one week, or I may just speak about a topic of interest for the second week. So I like to switch it up every now and then.
Okay. So how can people contact you?
Well, I'm available on all the social media platforms. So Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. You can find me at Nelson E. Brown or Nelson Brown. So you can put both names in the search engine. So Nelson E. Brown, that's my author name. So that's on um, Instagram and Twitter, and on Facebook and LinkedIn, I go by Nelson Brown. So, and I'm in the process. I'm working with my cousin to set up a website for the new year. So once I have my new website for my books and for my show, I'm definitely going to keep all of my listeners and everyone in my audience up to date about that. If they want to connect with me directly, they can shoot me an email at brownnelsone@gmail.com, and I'm usually really, really good about responding. So those are the ways they can contact me. But I know I'm still working on my website with my cousin, so I know that she and I are going to make something fantastic. So I'm just looking forward to that for the new year.
Awesome. And speaking of your book, where can people purchase your book?
My book is available through all of the distribution channels. So on Amazon, it's available in a paperback and ebook format. So both books. The first book, The Beauty in Us, Our Reality, that's a memoir that I wrote, and it was self-published and released in August of 2018. So that's available on Amazon. And the second book is called The Beauty in Us, Vulnerable Masculinity, and that's a book of poetry that I wrote, and that was released earlier this year in February, and exactly on the 13th of February this year. So that was released earlier this year, and that's also available in a paperback and ebook format. And I'm currently in the process of writing two more books that are supposed to be released for 2021. The first one's called The Beauty in Us, Our Love, Our Village, and the fourth one is supposed to be called The Beauty in Us, Our Souls in Armor. So I've been working on those extensively, and throughout the COVID-19 pandemic, and with all of the struggles that I've been through, from doing school remotely, to my job position being terminated, unfortunately, and to just trying to balance everything. It's really been challenging, and I think that writing has been my coping mechanism all along. And it's been such a dark 2020. It's been really, really dark since March. It's really, really been challenging, and I feel like this year definitely gave me this time frame between March and now. It's given me an opportunity to just use use writing as a coping mechanism in order to handle everything, because we are going through really, really difficult times right now. Not just financially, but emotionally, mentally, and in some cases spiritually. I mean, because it's really taking its toll on people. The pandemic, and it seems like it's gone on for forever. But it's only been since March. But I'm definitely in the process of sharing more of my story, and I hope people can look forward to it.
Here's my thing about 2020. I know a lot of people are like, I can't wait till 2020 is over and 2020 sucks and 2020 is like the worst year ever in life. And I had a new thought this morning about 2020. The Great Depression was called the Great Depression for a reason. It was a heck of a lot worse than what we're enduring right now. And the plague that they endured was a heck of a lot worse than what we're dealing with right now. And I'm not downplaying that we're not in a season right now. But what we have to remember is that we preached and we testified and we hooped and hollered so much that 2020 was going to be the year of vision. And guess what? It was. Our eyes have been opened so much this year of what life is really about. We've saw what America's really about. We saw what our so-called quote unquote friends were really about. We saw what our so-called family was really about, our employers, what our ministries, what our goals, what our priorities. Doors have been open that we never really walked through if other doors wasn't shut. I consider 2020 in a lot of ways a blessing, because speaking for like me and you, would we have really had the opportunity to even be a part of AGR? if 2020 would have happened? Probably not. More likely, probably not, because we probably wouldn't even talk to AJ or any affiliates with AJ because we would have been doing something else. Because we would have been too busy doing other stuff because everything was open and we would have been doing other things trying to make other stuff happen versus what we're doing right now. So yeah, it's a different type of year, but it's a year that God is doing a different type of thing. He's trying to open up our eyes. It is the year to see. It is the year of vision. So I am so glad I got you on here. I really enjoyed you. I love your show. I love what you're doing. So I have one more question for you. You ready?
Yes, I am.
All right. This is the question I ask all my guests. I don't know if you listen to my podcast or not. So here you go. If you could have any song be your theme song when you walked into a room, what would it be and why?
Okay. I have a lot of 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 songs that I listen to. I mean, I enjoy music so much, different genres. I just I mean I love so much music. I would have to sort through my music box. I listen to too many right now. I think that a song that would describe how I feel, throughout the course of 2020. I think that "Breakaway" by Kelly Clarkson is a song that I think describes a lot of what I've been going through this year in terms of trying to, finish, my last year of school remotely at UMBC as a sociology student. And turning 21 years old, and I'm still learning about, new things, broadening my horizon, and you know just dealing with the fact that just I have to make adjustments financially because my job position was terminated, and just having to go through so many changes. I think "Breakaway" by Kelly Clarkson really describes the transitions that I've had to make this year. And it describes how doors are being closed, but how other doors are opening up for me. And how I've just had to release some people, some just bad relationships, or just things that were not healthy for me. Because sometimes we have a tendency to hold on to things that were not meant to be held. Sometimes we hold on to things that is meant to be done, finished and over with. So I think that "Breakaway" by Kelly Clarkson really describes my year, personally.
I love her. She's actually on my vision board of one of the persons I want to meet. I love Kelly Clarkson. Love that woman. She has such a sweet spirit. Love her. So good choice. Well, thank you so much, Nelson, for being on the show. And which means I'm gonna have to have you on my live show. Don't ask me when, but I will. You have a good one, okay?
I will. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you, Nelson, for being on the show. I greatly appreciate you taking your time out of your busy schedule to share with us all the awesome things that you are doing, no pun intended, with all the great things that you're doing in God's Word. And if you would like to be on Worldly Church Girl, click the link below, shoot me an email, and let's see what we can do with that thing. And if you haven't heard, Worldly Church Girl is going live. You can catch me on Facebook, YouTube, Awesome God Radio, and B-Men TV. And don't forget to hit that subscription button so you will never miss another episode. And as always, thanks for joining your one and only Worldly Church Girl.